Have you ever been the recipient of a startling discovery during a funeral, or have you personally observed someone close to you receive one? The protagonist of this tale is a small child named Gabriel who, while attending his mother Stella's funeral, discovered something frightening. Stella was a devoted and industrious woman who put her fashion business first before she passed away. Unmarried and totally focused on her career, Stella oversaw a profitable business valued at millions of dollars with the help of her older brother Paul. But when Stella met Henry, a wealthy businessman whose company had an astounding valuation of $250 million, her life took a drastically different turn. At first, their connection was strictly professional, but Stella's barriers were progressively lifted by Henry's indisputable charm. Stella found herself captivated to Henry's kind gestures, daily calls, lovely texts, and extravagant dates, despite her brother Paul's doubts and her co-workers' cautionary remarks. Amidst Paul's warnings about Henry's ulterior motives, Stella remained steadfast in her belief that Henry's intentions were genuine, citing his own thriving business as evidence that he had no need to exploit hers. Ignoring her brother's concerns, Stella continued her relationship with Henry, basking in the bliss of newfound love. However, their idyllic romance came crashing down when Stella discovered she was pregnant. Bursting with excitement, she rushed to Henry's office to share the joyous news, only to be met with a devastating reaction. As the words escaped her lips, she watched in horror as Henry's expression turned cold, shattering her hopes and revealing the true nature of their relationship. Henry's sudden sternness sent a chill down Stella's spine. When she had never witnessed this side of him before, his next words pierced through her happiness like a dagger. "I have a wife and family, and I cannot be a father to your child." Stella felt as though the ground had vanished beneath her feet when Henry coldly instructed her to leave his office. Speechless and shattered, Stella retreated home, where she wept herself into a restless sleep. Days passed without her returning to work or responding to the concerned calls from her family. After a week of silence, Paul felt compelled to visit his sister, only to find her in a state of desolation. Stella poured out her heart to him. Recounting the painful encounter with Henry, Paul seethed with anger, vowing to confront Henry and exact revenge. But Stella, drained and disillusioned, implored him to let it go and move forward. She had learned a harsh lesson and refused to be deceived by another man. However, Stella's tribulations were far from over. Months later, she welcomed a baby boy into the world and named him Gabriel, believing him to be a blessing in the midst of her turmoil. Despite the absence of a father, Stella showered Gabriel with boundless love, while Paul stepped in as a fatherly figure in the young boy's life. Even Stella's mother embraced her grandson with open arms, filling their home with warmth and affection. For a time, life seemed to regain a semblance of normalcy as Stella focused on rebuilding her company and moving past her heartache. However, fate had other plans in store. One day, Stella detected a lump in her breast, but she chose to push it aside, immersing herself in work and hoping it would vanish on its own. When Stella's health rapidly declined, it took the joint intervention of Paul and their mother to persuade her to seek medical attention. The diagnosis was devastating. Stella had cancer. Feeling overwhelmed and believing the world was conspiring against her, Stella chose to keep her condition a secret from her family, offering excuses whenever they inquired about her health. But as her condition worsened, she could no longer conceal the truth. Despite their initial shock and sense of betrayal, Paul and their mother insisted that Stella confide in them. After hours of persuasion, Stella finally revealed her cancer diagnosis, causing further heartache and anguish among her loved ones. She justified her silence by claiming she didn't want them to worry and assured them she was diligent with her medication and appointments. Above all, she wanted to shield Gabriel from the burden of worrying about her. However, Stella's condition deteriorated rapidly, and she was readmitted to the hospital in critical condition. The doctors delivered grim news. Stella's cancer had reached an incurable stage, and she had less than a year to live. The weight of this prognosis was unbearable for her family. Determined to ensure Stella's final days were filled with love and happiness, her family maintained a cheerful atmosphere in her ward. However, Stella made a heartbreaking request. She asked that Gabriel remain unaware of her condition in the limited time they had left together. Months later, when Stella sensed her final hours approaching, she gathered her family, including Gabriel, around her bedside. With tears in her eyes, she expressed her gratitude for their love and support, urging them to accept her fate. Drawing Gabriel close, she whispered words of love and reassurance, promising to watch over him always. With that, Stella breathed her last, leaving her family grief-stricken beside her lifeless body. In the midst of their sorrow, Henry unexpectedly appeared, shocking Paul. Despite Paul's initial disbelief and anger, Henry approached Gabriel, introducing himself as his father. Gabriel, stunned into silence, could only stare in disbelief, while his grandmother erupted in anger at Henry's sudden presence. Gabriel's grandmother unleashed a torrent of insults at Henry, her fury unchecked until hospital security intervened, preventing her from physically assaulting him. Enraged, Henry stormed out of the hospital, vowing revenge against the elderly woman who had dared to confront him. True to his word, Henry returned a few days later, accompanied by the police, armed with a court order granting him permission to speak with Gabriel in Stella's home. Henry demanded an audience with Gabriel, brandishing the court order and asserting his intention to take the boy away to live with him as his son. Despite Henry's assurances that his other sons would welcome Gabriel, the little boy recoiled in fear. Defiantly, Gabriel expressed his desire to remain with his grandmother and uncle, prompting Henry to persist in his demands. However, Gabriel's grandmother vehemently rejected Henry's claims, accusing him of attempting to manipulate and poison Gabriel's affection towards him. Tensions escalated, transforming the room into a battleground, until the police intervened to defuse the conflict. Reluctantly, Henry retreated with the officers, leaving the family to grapple with the upheaval he had wrought. Henry's next appearance came uninvited at Stella's funeral, where he once again demanded an audience with Gabriel. Unyielding, the family rebuffed his demands, sparking a heated altercation. Henry produced a copy of Stella's will, which purportedly named him when Gabriel's legal guardian until the boy reached adulthood and was deemed capable of managing Stella's company. Paul, refusing to acknowledge the validity of the will, dismissed it as a fabrication, deepening the rift between the family and Henry. Meanwhile, Gabriel stood before his mother's coffin, bidding her a tearful farewell, oblivious to the turmoil unfolding around him. When Gabriel embraced his grandmother with tears streaming down his face, he noticed several sheets of paper lying beside Stella's lifeless form. Sensing their importance, he alerted his uncle, Paul, and grandmother, who swiftly left Henry outside and approached the coffin. With trembling hands, they retrieved the papers and discovered Stella's original will. To their astonishment, the will declared Gabriel as the rightful heir to her company, with Paul entrusted to oversee its management until Gabriel reached maturity. This revelation dealt a crushing blow to Henry, exposing his deceitful intentions. The fabricated will he brandished earlier crumbled in the face of Stella's authentic document. Realizing his deception had been uncovered, Henry fled in haste, leaving behind a trail of lies and betrayal. His attempt to manipulate Stella's legacy had failed spectacularly, and he knew that Paul would soon confront him. With Henry's departure, a sense of justice prevailed, and the family found solace in knowing that Stella's wishes had been upheld. When they gathered around Stella's final resting place, they reflected on the tumultuous journey they had endured, finding strength in their unity and resilience. And so, the story of Stella, Gabriel, and their family came to a close, a tale of love, loss, and ultimately, triumph over deceit. When they moved forward, carrying Stella's memory in their hearts, they found comfort in the knowledge that they had prevailed against adversity, emerging stronger and more united than ever before. That's all about the first story, and now let's watch another similar story. As Stella stood rigidly at the front pew of the aging church, her emotions a tumultuous storm within her. Men in somber attire solemnly ushered in the coffin, containing the remains of her only brother. The hymns, hauntingly sung by the choir, offered no solace to her grief-stricken heart. Stefan, her beloved brother, had met a tragic end in a kitchen accident caused by a gas leak. It was Robin, Stefan's closest friend, who had relayed the grim details of the inferno that engulfed him. The severity of the burns left Stefan unrecognizable, prompting Robin's recommendation for a closed coffin funeral to spare the family further anguish. Though the decision was made out of compassion, it only deepened Estelle's anguish. Unable to bid farewell to Stefan's familiar face, she felt the weight of injustice bearing down upon her. driven by an overwhelming surge of sorrow and resentment, Estelle disregarded the taboo of the sealed casket. Despite the protests of relatives attempting to restrain her, grief fueled her with an unexpected strength. In her desperate bid to reach her brother's side, she broke free momentarily, only to stumble and collide with the unforgiving floor, her head meeting the cold concrete. Sam and Betty Johnson, Estelle and Stefan's parents, had longed for another child after Stefan's birth. Despite their efforts, fate seemed to elude them until Estelle arrived, a beacon of hope after years of longing. The Johnsons, though not affluent, found contentment in their small but tight-knit family unit, until tragedy tore through their lives, leaving them shattered in its wake. The Johnson family, while not excessively affluent, ensured that their children lacked for nothing when they grew. Stefan doted on his younger sister, treating her like a cherished princess, a bond that only deepened when Estelle was diagnosed with autism. Stefan became her unwavering protector, her guardian against a world that often misunderstood her. To Estelle, Stefan was not just a brother but a superhero, her anchor in a bewildering reality. Tragedy struck the once content family when Sam, their father and sole provider, perished in a fatal motor accident. Stefan, merely 18 and newly enrolled in college, found himself thrust into the role of breadwinner, with their mother, Betty, frequently unwell and unable to secure steady employment. The burden of supporting the family fell squarely on Stefan's young shoulders. The weight of responsibility bore down heavily on Stefan as he struggled to navigate the financial strain left in the wake of his father's passing. Determined to honor his father's legacy and provide for his grieving family, Stefan tirelessly sought out menial jobs despite their modest pay. His dual roles as a bank teller and car wash attendant provided enough to sustain the family's basic needs. Every penny earned went towards putting food on the table, covering Estelle's necessary medical expenses, and alleviating the mounting bills that threatened to overwhelm them. For Stefan, the path he walked was fraught with challenges and sacrifices, yet he persevered with unwavering resolve, fueled by a deep sense of duty and love for his family. Despite the challenges, Stefan possessed a remarkable resilience, adept at turning adversity into opportunity. With the years passed, his dedication to his studies paid off, propelling him to the top of his class in the civil engineering department. With graduation on the horizon, a promising future seemed within his grasp. However, fate intervened cruelly during Stefan's final year at college. Betty, his mother, fell gravely ill, her diagnosis of end-stage kidney failure casting a shadow of despair over their already burdened lives. The prognosis was dire. Costly weekly dialysis and the looming possibility of a kidney transplant were their only hopes for her survival. Stefan, reeling from the weight of this new crisis, felt the ground beneath him give way. The meager wages from his humble jobs proved woefully inadequate to meet the mounting medical expenses. The enormity of the situation bore down on him, crushing his spirit. Desperate and overwhelmed, Stefan found himself at a crossroads, grappling with the harsh reality that he could no longer shoulder this burden alone. Estelle, too, was devastated by the news of her mother's condition, her heart aching with helplessness. Though unable to offer tangible assistance, her unwavering support and encouragement became her sole means of aid to her beleaguered brother. In a moment of vulnerability, Stefan confided in his closest friend, Robin, about his dire financial straits. Moved by his friend's plight, Robin extended a lifeline in the form of a lucrative yet perilous opportunity: smuggling illegal things for a Mexican cartel led by Carlos Armando. Despite the risks, Stefan saw no alternative but to consider Robin's proposal. Driven by the desperate need to save his mother and preserve what remained of their shattered family, Stefan was left speechless, grappling with a whirlwind of emotions. While the prospect of securing quick funds to save his mother's life was enticing, the idea of venturing into the perilous world of illegal things smuggling filled him with dread. He voiced his concerns to Robin, but his friend's assurances of wealth beyond imagination swayed Stefan's wavering resolve. Driven by desperation and the singular goal of saving his mother, Stefan reluctantly agreed to Robin's proposition. His plan was simple: execute one smuggling operation, secure the necessary funds, and then sever all ties with the criminal underworld. With a heavy heart, Stefan made the fateful decision to embark on this dangerous path. 2 days later, Stefan found himself face to face with the formidable figure of Armando in an eerie, abandoned subway station. Despite the palpable tension, Stefan managed to maintain his composure as Armando scrutinized him. To Stefan's relief, Armando deemed him suitable for the job, filling him with a mix of elation and trepidation. The details of the operation sounded almost surreal, posing as students on an excursion to Mexico, smuggling backpacks of illegal thing worth millions of dollars. Stefan's mind raced with visions of the staggering sum he stood to gain, enough to transform his family's life forever. However, beneath the allure of wealth lay a gnawing fear of the risks involved. When the fateful day approached, Stefan's thoughts were consumed by his mother and sister, the driving force behind his perilous undertaking. With a heavy heart and newfound determination, Stefan set out for Mexico alongside his fellow gang members, bracing himself for the harrowing journey ahead. Sadly, there was a betrayal of the group by members of Armando's cartel. A competing illegal things gang had learned about their operation via mole. While traveling to the US, Stefan and his friends were attacked by a rival gang and held at gunpoint while they looted every pack of illegal thing. Following their triumphant theft, the opposing group disappeared without a trace. When Stefan understood how much they had lost, he felt as though the universe had collapsed. Stefan realized there wasn't much time left, but he wasn't sure how to tell Armando the news. But when Armando heard their story, he was so angry that he brushed it off as a lie. He thought the youngsters were trying to fool him, therefore he suspected betrayal. Armando threatened severe penalties if they did not retrieve the pills within the allotted 2 weeks or pay him an equivalent amount. Stefan could feel the weight of Armando's coming anger when he was overcome with panic. Even when he was hiding with Robin's assistance, he felt eyes observing everything he did. Stefan called his sister Estelle, telling her how bad things were and asking her to take care of their mother, in a last-ditch effort to keep his family safe. Anxious, Estelle tried to contact Stefan several times, but to no effect. 5 excruciating days later, she got a call from an unidentified number. Without hesitating, the caller, Robin, Stefan's closest friend, broke the heartbreaking news that Stefan had died in a fire explosion. In a moment, Estelle's world fell apart, her body seized by terror and sorrow over her brother's passing. It was nearly impossible for Estelle to accept that her superhero brother could truly be gone. The news felt unreal, causing her head to spin and her vision to blur. This surreal feeling mirrored the numbness she experienced during Stefan's funeral, where her emotions threatened to overwhelm her. As she made a desperate dash towards his coffin, she stumbled and fell, only to be restrained by relatives preventing her approach. Fueled by a surge of anger and a strength she didn't know she possessed, Estelle broke free from their grasp with a terrifying scream, ignoring the burns that may have disfigured Stefan's face. She was driven solely by the need to see her brother one last time. With a forceful push, she flung open the coffin, revealing a sight that chilled her to the core. Instead of Stefan's body, there lay a male mannequin, dressed to resemble her brother. Estelle's cry of disbelief echoed through the silent church, drawing the attention of all present. Even the priest, upon seeing the macabre deception, recoiled in shock, crossing himself in disbelief. Chaos erupted among the mourners as the reality of the situation sank in. Though initially relieved by the possibility that Stefan might still be alive, Estelle's relief quickly turned to concern. What had her brother gotten himself into? Determined to unravel the mystery and save Stefan from whatever danger he faced, Estelle turned to Mr. Godfrey, a trusted neighbor and family friend who also happened to be a high-ranking police officer. Upon hearing her plight, Godfrey wasted no time mobilizing a team of officers to investigate. Their search led them back to the church, where they confronted Robin, the supposed bearer of tragic news. It became apparent that Robin had orchestrated a deceitful scheme, fabricating Stefan's death and arranging his burial without his family's knowledge. Estelle's determination to uncover the truth ignited a chain of events that would ultimately lead to the unraveling of Robin's treachery and the rescue of her beloved brother. Godfrey's instincts immediately flagged Robin's behavior as suspicious, but upon arriving at the church with his team, Robin had vanished without a trace. Estelle found herself engulfed in sorrow, convinced of Stefan's demise and troubled by suspicions surrounding Robin's involvement. Even Betty, sharing Estelle's grief, resigned herself to the belief that Stefan was gone. Nights were filled with Estelle's tears when she mourned the loss of her brother. However, Just 3 days later, a tip came in to the police, alleging Stefan's death and implicating none other than Armando as the perpetrator, the caller, opting to remain anonymous for their safety, provided valuable insights into Armando's activities, including his routine meetings with his gang at an abandoned subway station on Sunday nights. With this information in hand, the police, led by Godfrey, prepared for action. Their plan was executed with precision. Arriving at the subway station ahead of Armando's gang, the police surrounded the area, intending to take them by surprise. When the confrontation unfolded, it erupted into a fierce exchange of gunfire between Armando's loyalists and the police SWAT team. In the chaos, Armando himself fell, fatally wounded by a shot to the head. Days passed without news of Stefan's fate, leaving his family to grapple with the belief that he was long gone. That notion was shattered one evening, barely a week after Armando's demise. Estelle, having just finished a solitary dinner, was startled by a soft knock at the door. Imagine her astonishment and overwhelming relief when she found Stefan standing there. In a moment of pure joy and disbelief, Stefan enveloped Estelle in a tight embrace, his presence a testament to hope realized. Tears flowed freely as Estelle clung to her brother, overcome with gratitude and a flood of unanswered questions. For now, though, in each other's arms, they found solace and the promise of a future together. When Stefan settled into the sofa, he was prepared to divulge the truth to Estelle, knowing she deserved answers. With each word, he recounted the harrowing tale, explaining how he had orchestrated his own death with Robin's assistance to evade Armando's relentless pursuit. Estelle's emotions overflowed, torn between anger at the fear he had caused her and overwhelming relief at his return. Despite her initial turmoil, she couldn't harbor resentment toward Stefan for long, recognizing that his actions were driven by a deep love for their family. Apologizing profusely, Stefan held Estelle close, expressing regret for the trauma she had endured. In that embrace, Estelle found solace, her tears mingling with his. She wasn't angry, she was simply grateful to have her brother back, safe and sound. The next morning, Stefan accompanied Robin to the police station, where they recounted their ordeal. Stefan explained how Armando had coerced him into illegal things peddling, leading to his drastic decision to fake his own death. Robin corroborated his friend's account, admitting his role in the deception. The police, recognizing their bravery and acknowledging Stefan's unwitting role in Armando's downfall, cleared them of any charges and even hailed Stefan as a hero. With their newfound freedom, Stefan wasted no time in leveraging social media to aid their family's plight. A heartfelt post detailing their mother's need for a kidney transplant went viral, accompanied by a crowdfunding campaign. In just 2 weeks, they had raised an astonishing $200,000, enough to secure Betty's successful surgery when she was discharged from the hospital. Their family reunited, basking in the joy of their shared victory and the boundless love that had seen them through. That's all about this story. Now let's watch another similar story. In the serene enclave of Oakville, a profound camaraderie thrived between two lifelong friends. Tom and Harry's bond transcended time, enduring over 2 decades. Together, they traversed the journey of life, from shared school days to mutual interests, their connection unbreakable. This bond extended even to their choice of vehicles, each opting for identical models. When they progressed in their careers, they transitioned into the realm of real estate, establishing a prosperous business partnership. Their lives intertwined further as they settled in close proximity, their homes mirroring one another's design. Their camaraderie reached such depths that even their choice of communication devices mirrored one another. However, tragedy struck unexpectedly when Harry met his demise under mysterious circumstances. Tom, reeling from the loss of his dear friend, harbored suspicions of foul play, particularly directed towards Harry's wife, Sarah. Their last encounter at the office the night before Harry's passing intensified Tom's conviction of Sarah's involvement. The aftermath of Harry's death unfurled a harrowing sequence of events, plunging Tom into a realm of shock and disbelief. Amidst the somber atmosphere of Harry's funeral, Tom's resentment towards Sarah simmered, fueled by his unwavering belief in her culpability. His doubts regarding Harry's sudden marriage to Sarah a year prior, coupled with her peculiar behavior preceding the tragedy, only intensified his suspicions. As Tom observed mourners bidding their final farewells, a resolve crystallized within him to unearth the truth and avenge his friend's untimely demise. With each passing moment, his determination solidified, compelling him to take matters into his own hands. Thus, he devised a plan to confront Sarah, seeking to confront her with the evidence he believed he had uncovered. In a bold move, Tom approached the altar during the funeral proceedings, placing Harry's phone within the casket for all to witness. With a solemn declaration of farewell to his departed friend, Tom sought to orchestrate a ruse, intending to insinuate that he had performed the gesture as a final tribute to Harry's memory. Thus, amidst the grief-laden atmosphere, Tom embarked on a perilous journey fueled by vengeance and a quest for justice, determined to unravel the truth behind his friend's demise. In a chilling twist of fate, it was indeed Harry's phone that Tom had placed within the coffin during the funeral. Aware that Harry had left his device at the office the night before, Tom seized upon this opportunity to further his plan. Utilizing Harry's SIM card, Tom embarked on a calculated scheme to confront Sarah, Harry's widow, masquerading as her deceased husband. Throughout the night, Tom persistently dialed Sarah's number, each call an attempt to elicit a confession from her. Despite Sarah's denial and subsequent refusal to engage with Tom, he remained undeterred. However, the following morning brought an unexpected turn of events when Sarah herself reached out to Tom, her demeanor fraught with panic and apprehension. In a startling admission, she confessed her involvement in her husband's demise, pledging to meet with Tom later that night to divulge the full extent of her actions. Tom's emotions were a tumultuous blend of shock and vindication upon receiving Sarah's confession. However, amidst his momentary triumph, an unsettling discovery awaited him. When he perused his missed calls, he noticed an incoming call from the very phone he had interred with Harry. Realization dawned upon him that he had inadvertently left the secondary SIM card active in the device. Haunted by an inexplicable dread, Tom repeatedly attempted to return the call, only to be met with silence. It wasn't until the seventh attempt that a response came, shattering Tom's senses with a ghastly whisper, reminiscent of Harry's voice, distorted and disjointed, seemingly emanating from beyond the grave. The words uttered remained unintelligible, leaving Tom paralyzed with fear and uncertainty. Driven by a relentless compulsion, Tom resolved to meet with Sarah as planned, despite the ominous foreboding that gripped him. However, Sarah's failure to appear and her subsequent unresponsiveness to his calls stirred a growing sense of unease within him. With each passing moment, Tom's apprehension intensified, his mind besieged by a torrent of unanswered questions, leaving him teetering on the precipice of an unfathomable truth. Accusations weighed heavily on Tom's conscience when he grappled with the aftermath of his actions. Without concrete evidence, his accusations against Sarah felt baseless, rooted solely in intuition. However, his gut instinct whispered of deception lurking beneath the surface. The following morning, Tom was jolted awake by the persistent ringing of his phone. Bracing himself for another chilling encounter, he was met with the unmistakable voice of Sarah, her words punctuated by anguished sobs. Amidst her frantic cries, a revelation pierced through the fog of confusion. Harry was alive. Tom's world tilted on its axis when he struggled to absorb this staggering revelation. Had his friend orchestrated his own demise? And if so, for what purpose? As he attempted to placate Sarah's hysteria, an ominous premonition gnawed at him, foretelling of impending chaos. Questions swirled in Tom's mind, each one a jagged edge cutting through his certainty. Had he misjudged Harry's fate from the outset? Recollections of the funeral, of his solemn farewell to his closest confidant, flashed before his eyes. The realization dawned upon him with chilling clarity. Had his actions unwittingly facilitated Harry's elaborate ruse? In stunned silence, Tom grappled with the weight of his unwitting involvement in Harry's scheme. Sarah's desperate pleas for assistance echoed in his ears, revealing the true motive behind Harry's staged demise. Burdened by the knowledge of Harry's dire financial predicament and his audacious attempt to flee from looming danger, Tom found himself ensnared in a web of deceit spun by his dearest friend. When Tom confronted the stark reality of Harry's deceit, the boundaries between truth and falsehood blurred, leaving him adrift in a sea of uncertainty. With each passing moment, the gravity of the situation intensified, casting a shadow over Tom's once unshakable convictions. In the wake of betrayal, Tom found himself teetering on the precipice of a truth more insidious than he could have ever imagined. Harry's desperate bid to escape his mounting debts had plunged both him and Sarah into a perilous game of deception. Faced with the relentless pursuit of creditors who brooked no refusal, Harry resorted to the extreme measure of faking his own demise to secure his life insurance payout. However, the insurance companies' skepticism threatened to unravel their carefully constructed facade, leaving them grasping at straws for a way out. In a moment of profound turmoil, Tom found himself torn between loyalty to his friend and righteous indignation at the havoc wrought by Harry's reckless scheme. Wrestling with conflicting emotions, Tom ultimately chose to extend a lifeline to his beleaguered friend, recognizing the depth of their bond transcended the betrayal. Utilizing his resources and connections, Tom orchestrated Harry and Sarah's disappearance, providing them with the means to forge new identities and vanish into obscurity. As the years passed, a postcard bearing greetings from a distant land arrived, a testament to the success of their escape and a bittersweet reminder of the bonds that once bound them together. For Tom, the journey was not merely one of loss, but also of growth and understanding. Through the crucible of adversity, he gleaned valuable insights into the complexities of human relationships and the power of forgiveness. Though their friendship had been irrevocably altered, Tom emerged from the ordeal with a newfound appreciation for the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring capacity for love in the face of betrayal. Above is today's story. If you like it, please subscribe and give it a thumbs up. See you next time.